All right, welcome. We're going to do a demonstration of, well, we're going to get started on it and I'm going to leave you guys to finish it. But essentially, what we're going to be working on is a word index. And what we're going to do is we're going to open up a file and we're going to put each word in the dictionary. And then for every word that we put in the dictionary, we're going to put the list of where that word is located, what line number it's located inside of the file. So in this case, the word we only is on line 1. We, line 1. But as is on lines 4, 5, and 6. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. So as is on all these lines. So it's a dictionary of lists is essentially what we're going to create. So we're going to have a dictionary that where the key is based on the word itself. And then we're going to add a list of where that is located. So we're going to build it up and kind of get it going to where you have the dictionary being built, and then I'm going to leave it up to you guys to finish. So let's look at beginning this, and I'm going to use that module 4 that we started, but we're not going to need the data file. Mod4.py, that's a good enough name. We're going to use that. So we're going to start with a dictionary that we're going to call a data set. And what we want to do is we want to open up a source file that's a text file. And I'm just going to hardcore code it in that it's source.txt. And we're going to actually go in and create that file. Now here's the important part, guys. We're reading text. So we're going to get rid of the B here. And then we don't need to do any loading. We just need to close the file. And we don't need to do any printing yet. So everything that we're going to do is based on opening this file, and then after we're done with the file, we will print our initial list of parsing and working with the file, the source file. So let's go ahead and create that source file, and I'm just going to copy it out. I'm going to save this real quick. I'm going to copy it I'm going to probably have to copy or type it right in. That's fine. You guys do the same thing. I'm going to go right click here, new text document. I'm going to call it source. Okay, now let's bring that up, and I'm going to actually just put it inside of Visual Studio and type it out in Visual Studio. Now I'm going to move this over to my other screen. You guys won't be able to see the other screen. That's fine. But if you guys have a method of looking at it and typing in that list of words, go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to go ahead and open here, and now I'm going to fill up my source.txt file. So we observe today not a victory of party, but a celebration, and then of freedom, symbolizing an end, as well as a beginning, signifying renewal as well as change. And then I'm going to add some my own words. The crazy border collie runs in circles. Okay, so just add some of your own stuff in there. It can be whatever you want. And you know what? You can just put whatever words you want in here that, it could be random words. Because we're going to be using the words as the key when we open the file. But here's the thing, is the mechanism that we're going to use is, because we want to store what line that we find that particular word, we're going to want to parse and tokenize each line. And that way we're going to keep track of a counter of what line we're on. And we're going to start that line counter at 1 for the first line. We're not going to use zero-based logic for this particular example. Even though if I was being kind of silly, I'd probably start this at, I'd call that line 0, and this would be line 1. You know what? I may end up being that silly anyways, so it doesn't matter. Okay. In fact, I think I am, because, you know, that's the way it should be. All right. Here is an example. Because we're going to need a dictionary of lists, and we're going to be storing the line numbers of where we find a particular word that we're going to be assigning to our key, we're going to have to create, we're going to have to soft code. I don't want to hard code anything. We can't, because we kind of don't have an idea of what we're going to get. It could be any text file, and that's the reason why we don't hard code things. So I'm going to need a dictionary and a list, and I'll just duplicate and recreate the list as we add onto the dictionary each word. So we're going to initially create the list on in each index of the dictionary. We may not need to actually create a list solely, because we can just put the list onto the dictionary as we come to a new key from a new word that we find in the text file. And we can use the if this key is in the dictionary, do something versus another thing. So let's, we're going to have some bumps and along the road. I may have to do some breaks to research a few things again, all kinds of different things as we progress through this example. So let's go ahead and start with our code. Remember, get your memory, print your memory. So we have our source.txt. Let's save it. We should be able to keep it here. And all I want to do is basically print every line. So what we're going to do is we're going to say for line in the file pointer. And then let's just print the line. That's all we need to do is print the line. And let's get this going first. And I'm not even going to debug. I'm just going to run it. Are we able to print the... Oh, uh-oh. Error in opening the file. Okay. We're already getting into some bumps and bruises. Let's see what we got here. We don't need pickle. We can remove that. We're not going to be using pickle in this example. Source.txt should be in module 4 with module pi. So let's go ahead. I have it open over here. Oh, you know what? That's probably not a good thing to do, because Visual Studio has the file open. So that might be a permissions issue that's causing that thing to fail. So let's close it. Let's close that file so that we don't have the file open. That's good practice when we're trying to open the file with our process instead of having it open with another process. Sometimes those processes lock the file so that you can't open it. Let's see if that's the problem. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit play again. Okay, nope, that's not the problem. So we need to go into a little bit more of what's going on here. I'm going to go ahead and save, close this down, and I'm going to directly open this guy up. And we're opening source.txt for reading. So let's go ahead and make sure that we're called this source.txt appropriately. I'm just going to directly, just in case I've got some weird spelling problems, just copy it directly from the name. Okay, there we go. Source. Okay. Close it, read. And you know what? I may be doing something wrong with the open, but that's fine. Let's see if this works. And if not, it's pause and research time. Okay, it's pause and research time. I'm going to go figure out exactly what I'm doing wrong here. And again, this goes right back to get your memory, print your memory, guys. I'll be right back. All right, this one is kind of interesting and a little bit embarrassing, but not really, because it's typical, your worst enemy. I did not have to change any code to get this to work. I just put it in the debug mode and it just started to read the file. There was no problems with it. So the code wasn't changed. What I think was the problem was that I changed the code and I didn't go up here and say file save. I didn't update the file. Very simple thing to do. So it was trying to open a file that doesn't exist. And as soon as I put it in debug mode, it forced the changes. I imagine Visual Studio did something to force the changes and whatever. But yeah, nothing was changed other than going into debug mode and saving the file. So let's go ahead and look at this. We open the file for line print. We can go over here and see that we're reading the line. One thing that we probably need to do is we need to actually strip before we process the line. Let's strip the line. That's one thing we need to do. Let's strip the \n from it. So we're going to say line is equal to line.strip, and let's force the \n to be stripped. Okay, let's verify that that's working so that we can properly tokenize our words, because we're going to be using the split method to tokenize. Okay, good. We got the \n working. Okay. Now for every line, we want to actually strip and print, because here's the idea, guys, is we need to put this information into our data set. And remember, we're not using this like a set. I'm just calling it data set. This is going to be a dictionary. But the main purpose here is that we need to have each word tokenized so that we can put it in the dictionary and then start our list for what line numbers that we actually find on that. So then I need a counter that counts the line number that I'm currently on. And the counter is something we can just start at 0 and iterate each time through the line. So I'm going to actually start with that. Let's start with a counter so we're keeping track of each line. And you guys, I'm starting at 0. I don't care. I'm not starting at 1 because 0 is 1 in programming, and I'm just going to be a little bit ridiculous with it. That's fine. You guys can start it at 1. That's great. So now every time that we process each line, I'm going to put this, and notice how I'm putting it at the very end of the scope of the for loop. We're going to want to iterate counter. And we're going to want to iterate counter by 1 to count up how many lines that we're actually working with. So I'm going to say counter plus equals 1. So that's going to be counter is equal to counter plus 1. So this is always going to keep track of what line number we're on. And the next thing I need to do is be able to print each word separately. So let's do this. For every line, let's strip the line, but what we're going to do is we're going to take each line and we're going to assign it to a list of words, and we're going to do that with a line list and I'm going to call it words. I'm just going to call it words. And words is going to be a list. And notice how I'm not hard coding that, I'm soft coding it. If I remember right, strip or split returns a list. I think it does. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to split the words, but we're going to split them based on the default split mechanism, which is a space. You know what? I'm going to be verbose, and I'm just going to go ahead and pass the argument that I want it to split based on spaces. So, and I'm going to send it to char, but even though it's defaults to a space, I'm going to be specific. So what we're going to do is for every line, we're going to get the words from that line, and we're going to split each of those words in that line. And we're going to split each of those words based on a space. Now I have every word, so I want to do something. I don't want to print the line anymore. I want to be able to print every word in the line. So what I can do is I can say for word in words. So that's like for each or for every word in words, print word. Okay. And then we have our counter for every line. So notice this counter is not in the scope of this for loop because we're not counting every word in the file. We could, but we're counting every line in the file. So we only need to keep track of what particular line we're processing. Okay, so now that I have I should have the ability to print every word and differentiate every word. So let's go ahead and look at that. So for the first line, I'm going to assign words to the split of that particular line. So I want to look over here in my locals, and I should see the words list that I've created here. And then I'm going to go ahead and look at that. And after line 10 ran, we can see that that words list filled up with every word that's in that list. That's awesome. Or every word that is in that line of text. So now I'm going to go ahead and just print every word separately. And you see how we're doing that down here below. It looks like the print is outputting every word separately. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play, continue, get rid of this breakpoint, and verify that we're printing every word in the line. And it looks like my crazy border collie in circles is coming out well. And it looks like that input is fairly clean. The strip didn't put in, we don't have any special characters. Every word is in its own location. That is now processed and ready to put on the dictionary. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the dictionary based on those words first. I'm not even going to worry about, let's not even worry about the line numbers yet. We can do that, but let's put every word on the dictionary. You know what? Let's initially put every word on the dictionary, but for the list that's in the dictionary, we're going to create the list in the dictionary with this. But we're going to do the initial list creation based on the current line number we're on. So we're going to actually work in this scope, the word scope. And what I want to do is let's just build the dictionary first and kind of look at what's going on and think about what's going on. I'm going to take my dictionary, which is data set, and I'm going to say, okay, what's my key value pair? Well, my key is going to be words here. So I'm just going to put words in there. Or no, not words, word. Because we've printed every word, so I've already looked at that and we're good. But what am I going to assign it to? I'm going to assign it to the counter. Okay, now let's just look at what that does. Let's look at how that behaves. And you know what? Let's do this. Let's, at the very end, let's just write a line of code. Let's put it in the scope of main. Notice how I tabbed in there. And I'm just going to do a print data set. It should be able to handle printing the whole list out, even though we're going to go in there and debug it and see what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and say run and debug. All right, now we got, okay, you know, this silly window, I just want to minimize these windows so I don't have to look at it. Okay, that's fine. I just want to drag this thing down. Oh, there we go. Cool. Nice. That way I don't have to look at those things because I just want to see my locals. So the data set right now has nothing in it. And if we break it down, we can see that the length is 0. So now what I'm going to do is we can look over here when we say that word is we. And counter is the value 0. So I step over and I look at my data set, and it looks like for location key we've put the value 0. And we can continue stepping over to look at that. And we can see that my data set is growing, and every word that I have, I've added to the dictionary for that particular location. We've got a problem we haven't considered yet, because we don't want to actually add to the dictionary unless that word is not already in the dictionary. So line 12 is going to have to be modified. And let's go ahead and finish out and look at our output. Okay, so if we look at our output, we've got a problem here, because we're just adding the word and what line we found that word on. We're not actually dealing with duplicate words inside of that text file. So for that, we're going to need an if statement, and we're going to have to actually, make it behave a little bit differently. So what I want to do is, I don't want to actually do this yet. I only want to do this step if the word is not found. If the word has been found in the dictionary, then I want to go to that key set and append to the list that's in that key set. Because directly we are going to add a list to that key. So that means that we need to soft code a list, an empty list in that key, and then only if that key is not in the list do we run line 12. So that means that line 12 can only run if word is not in. I may not, oh, I think it's just not in. If word not in, I think it's not in data set. And this is why you can do such advanced stuff in Python compared to other languages, and why people just love it, because it's natural. You're using this, you're doing something complex naturally. Okay, so here's the problem here is I don't have this in the data set, but I only want to do that if the else comes in. I only want to add a new key if the word is not in the data set. But if the word is in the data set, and I've got to tab this in so it gets in the scope of the else. If the word is in the data set, then I add to the list. But then I get to thinking, I can't add to the list that's in that key pair unless I've created the list. So then that goes down to here. This line of code is not going to work anymore. What I need to do is I need to create the list first with empty brackets. So that just soft codes an empty list in there. At least I think it will. We can also kind of look at it. And what I'm going to do here is just to remove the, so that we can run the debugger. I'm just going to print something in here just so that we can test this else condition. Because I want to see how this behaves. Because the next line of code is if it creates a list properly with the syntax and semantics that I'm working with, then I can use the add or append method for that list to add the counter to the list that's at that key value pair location. So let's just go ahead and look, and I want to set my breakpoint for when this else happens, but I'm just going to look at that. The else is going to happen right off the bat because it's going to see that that word is not in the data set yet because the data set is empty. We look at our locals over here, it's empty. So it should run the else. Oh, okay. I did something wrong because if word is, oh, my logic is backwards. My logic is backwards here. I got it. Only if the word is not in do I do this. I'm being silly. Okay, let's go ahead and bring that in. All right, so only if the word is not in the data set do I need to initially create the list of that key pair. Else just do whatever, because I don't really care. I'm just trying to look and see if this line works with my syntax and semantics. From everything, I'm pretty sure that this is going to behave. Let's see. Okay, so if the word is not in the data set, what are we going to do on the data set? So this line hasn't run yet. So I'm looking over here at the data set, my locals, and it's just an empty data set. So if it puts brackets in there, that means that it's putting an empty list in there. Okay, look at that. It put in the value, the key, we, and an empty set of brackets there that represents the list of line numbers that we is going to be at. Okay, that worked. That worked well. Okay. However, it looks like when we get to this else, here's what we can do when we get to the else. We're still running. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set the breakpoint here. And I'm going to remove this because I don't want to run through all that, and I only want to see what happens when we find a word that is already in the data set, that's already in there. What happens there? How does that behave? So I'm going to go ahead and this is where I'm going to hit the continue, and we're going to continue until that else triggers. And boom, we just continue to the else triggers, and the word I'm looking at is letter A. Yeah, letter A is probably already in the dictionary. Here it is right here. Letter A is in the dictionary. So what do I need to do here? Well, there's a few things that I've got a problem with. First off, I've got an error. I mean, I can get to that soon, but I think we're not done with that line 13 because I'm putting an empty list in there. I could hard code this and put counter inside of here, but I'm not going to. I'm going to do data set at key value word at word key dot, is it append? I'm going to do append. And what am I going to append? The counter. That's my line counter. What counter is that word on? Now you can just hard code counter in here. That'll work. That goes against my nature. I don't like to hard code as much as possible. So I think we're good. Let's go ahead and examine this again. And let's keep our breakpoint here. And let's look at what happens now with that new added code. Okay, cool. We've got this. We got a length of 9. So we should have quite a few items in here. We could actually just, if I open this up, there we go. So you see, I just double clicked on it so it would take me to the end. Just double click on it, took me to the end of where it's at. So we've got a few issues here that probably has to do with our counter. Oh, we haven't finished processing. That's right, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. We haven't finished reading the file in because we broke out here. Everything's working the way it should from what I can see. So now we're able to handle for when we find a key, a word that's already in the dictionary. And that's when we need to, well, we already got the code written. That's when we just need to append the new line on. So we've already got it. So we just got to do this. Cool. All right. Let's keep this breakpoint and let's see how this behaves when it finds a word that's already in the dictionary. Okay, I'm going to run it. It's going to break out when this if statement trips, and it's saying, hey, we found a word. It's the word A, and we found it at location 1. So that means that we already got word A. Oh, here it is. We've already got word A at location 0. So what we're looking for is for this to go to 0, 1. Okay, so now I'm going to step over and let's look at it. Yeah, look at that. It worked. So we're good. We've made it to where I want. So I'm going to remove this breakpoint, hit play to continue. And we see then that our data set, our dictionary now has, well, the word A is fairly common. It happens on lines 0, 1, and 3. So here's what I want you guys to finish up. I want you to output this to the text file in the manner that is shown from the exercise. So what I'm expecting is that your output, if I can actually bring that up for some reason, I don't know why. Oh, it's on the other screen. I want to see this. I want to see it look like this. So I'm going to let you guys continue on with it to finish it up. But that is the way I go about solving this type of issue. Start small, guys. Get your memory, print your memory. Take those little steps as you continue to go in that direction of what you're trying to do. Now, let's go ahead and give you kind of a full view of this code. Here's how main starts out. We create a dictionary. We create a list of words that we're going to parse and tokenize. Then for every one of those words, we're going to add to the dictionary the particular location. And yes, I'm leaving it 0 based. If you guys want to be silly about it, go ahead and put the number 1 up here. And then we print the data set. This is where you're going to do a for loop, and you're going to actually chunk this out to disk, key item by key item, so that it looks exactly like I showed you in this example right here. I want you to actually parse and tokenize your output so that you're not just directly outputting the list in its form that I've shown you. So you're going to have to use your for loops to print to your text file so that it looks exactly like this. All right, guys, take care. Bye-bye.